Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today my guest is Jaymin Modi, who is a filmmaker and directed a documentary called Ajrakh. So do watch the whole video, like the video, subscribe. So sir, my first question is like what inspired you to become a filmmaker, sir? Why you choose to become a filmmaker? If you could tell your whole journey from childhood to become a filmmaker.
So interestingly, since childhood, I always wanted to be a part of film industry. I very clearly remember when in fifth grade, a teacher asked everyone what you want to become once you are adult and everything. So I know that I say I think I wanted to be an actor or director or music director, but anything with actor behind it. So since and my father is a huge cinema uh, enthusiast. As a common Indian, a person who loves cinema that way is not active in the industry. Um, since then, he has shown me numerous amount of mainstream in the cinema, which so the bug bit me also. And since childhood, I always wanted to be part of film industry. And with the passage of time, I understood that my passion for storytelling is far stronger than my passion for acting per se. So, and being from Ahmedabad, I was introduced to NID since a very early age. When I was seventh or eighth standard, and art teacher of mine introduced me to NID, and I knew that there is a film course there. So, since childhood, I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to do. So that's how I became part of film industry. I do not have a very dramatic story about that.
Okay, okay. So what have you studied? Like you have studied related to films or something else?
After 12th, I joined NID and I learned filmmaking from NID. I cleared NID at my second trial. So at first trial, I failed in 12th also and NID also. So in second trial, I cleared my 12th, and on second trial, I cleared my NID. And even in NID, there is a foundation here in which you still have time to decide which discipline do you want to choose, because there is product design and there are countless other disciplines. But even during NID, me and a few more like minded friends of mine were very clear that we want to make films.
So, sir, in generally, like, what's your opinion on film school? And you, if somebody comes like for advice, so you would say go to a film school or not?
I would say going to film school is not a compulsion. It's not that if you want to become a filmmaker, going to film school is a must. I would not say that. But I would also say that it gives you so much that uh, so much knowledge and a kind of knowledge which is very difficult to acquire any other way. For example, I strongly believe the campus is what make an institution great, not the curriculum. So if you go to any institute, if you go to Chandigarh, FTI, SRFTI, so all you can learn is, if all you can learn is shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and all the technical knowledge, then there is a waste, because that you can learn even from the industry. So if you assist someone for 4 to 5 years, you can become a filmmaker and a successful good filmmaker. But the main advantage of going to a film school is the amount of interesting conversations you have with your faculties, the other students, other discipline faculties. Because coming from NID, it's a design school. So I have had interactions with graphic designer, textile designer. My wife is a textile designer. from NID. So, product designer, one of the best filmmakers I personally know, one of the best cinematographers I personally know is a furniture design student from NID. So interestingly, if somebody asks me should I go to film industry or film school, so I would say go to film school for this experiences, because the 4 to 5 rich, enriching conversations you can have, the interaction with even the campus, the experience of a campus where you can experiment with your film without any stakes. So if you're doing a client project, you have a certain amount of interference, or at least you have some expectations to fulfill, and there are some stakes. You cannot fail. But the film institutes allow you to fail. So if I'm making a student film and I know that this concept may not work, there are very faint chances that this concept, but as a student I can still go with that concept and just have that learning experience from the failing. So there are a few interesting experiences a film school offers, which is very difficult to have otherwise. So I would say go to film school. I would recommend it, but at the same time, I would not say that it's an absolute necessity to be a filmmaker.
Sir, how big was your course? 3 years?
4 years, 4.5 years.
Okay. Okay. So, sir, you prefer like go to film school during graduation or like during your masters?
So I went to graduation, and I regret not doing masters in anything. I haven't done masters from anywhere, and I regret it because the student life never comes back. And I wish I had masters in something else, which I could, some other skill which I could have combined with my filmmaking skills. For example, journalism. So I wish I could have done masters back then, so I could have, because ultimately the enriching you get from education is it's irreplaceable any other way. So time invested, 2 to 3 years invested during your student life goes a long way. So I request all of the students to not to be in a hurry to join a market, because when I was a student, when I was in a final year, I always, all of us, we were like, okay, let's get done with the studies and let's join the market and do something cool. So that feeling is there. It's universal. I can understand, but my advice is to hold that feeling and get masters, or at least acquire more skills before you enter the market. There should not be any hurry, because ultimately that's an investment which gives you much larger returns than you imagine.
And sir, how your interest in documentary started during NID or later?
So interestingly, I do not like to personally do not prefer to differentiate between fiction and non-fiction. So ultimately, it's cinema, it's visuals, and then there is audio, and you create an experience that transcends the audience. So I treat the documentaries same way I treat my feature films, the same way I treat music videos, and the fundamental principles are pretty much the same. There should be rhythm, there should be an enjoyable or engaging narrative. So in a way, there is always a good beginning, middle, and en- um engaging visuals, good sound. So all those basics are there, and ultimately there is a narrative. It's an exercise in telling a narrative, may it be fiction or non-fiction. So personally, I do not prefer to change my approach in tackling multiple projects. So I approach the craft documentary the same way I tackle a full-length feature thriller film. So, But answering your question, so as a student life, we are supposed to make a fiction film. We are also supposed to make a documentary film. I made a disastrous documentary film when I was a student. But as I said, it was a good learning experience. And there is something about craft that pulls me. I can never say no to Kutch. Kutch is a region in Gujarat which is extremely rich in crafts, color, culture. So whenever there is a project regarding if the client utters the word Kutch, I can't say no to. So I have made a documentary on Ajrakh, Bandhani. So for some corporate clients also. Uh, so that way, I would not say I'm only a documentary filmmaker. So I worked in Gujarat. I made Gujarati films. I worked in Gujarati film industry as a cinematographer, editor. So I made music videos. I have worked in. I've not worked too much in commercials, but I have done some. So whenever there is a client, when there is a project coming my way, so only question is, would I enjoy working on this project or not, regardless of the format of that project. So I have not confined myself as only as a documentary filmmaker.
Sir, before directing your own films, did you assisted someone?
I have not assisted anyone yet. So after just after NID, I got a project in which I was a cinematographer and editor. So in a way, my direction skills come from working on projects as a cinematographer and an editor, and also a screenplay. I co-write sometimes. So the same way, I do not differentiate between. I not only differentiate between the formats, but also I do not like to differentiate between the processes. Um, Writing or cinematography or editing or direction. When I conceive a project, I try to visualize the final film. I close my eyes and try to visualize that as an audience, if I'm watching the film which is not made yet, how is it looking? How is it? I can see cuts, I can see performances, I can see dialogues, I can hear dialogues, and whatever I visualize, I try to execute. So the same way, I am unable to differentiate between different um, departments of the filmmaking. So, but long story short, I have not assisted anyone yet. So because I straightly went to cinematography and editing. And once you become HOD and you have that um, nice treatment on the set, it's difficult to go back to AD life.
True, 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 true. Sir, how the idea for Ajrak came, sir? It's a documentary.
Ajrak, actually, it was a commissioned project. So, Mr. Ismail Bhai, Dr. Ismail Bhai, actually contacted one of the NID textile faculties. Her name is Swasti. And when I was a student, she was my faculty in foundation. And Ajrak and Ismail Bhai wanted someone to make a film on Ajrak, not on him. He's a 60 years old person, and Ajrak is a relatively unknown craft. So and he has a small studio in Kutch. So whenever a client comes to him, their first question is, what is Ajrak? Because there are some crafts you don't have to explain. For example, Bandhani, sometimes you don't have to explain because it's tie and dye. But Ajrak is an intricate craft. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to explain. So he wanted to make a 10-minute video on explaining what Ajrak is to a absolutely uh, unknown person to the craft. So while researching, I felt that that should it's it should not be only an explanation video. It should be a documentary. And I pursued Dr. Ismail Vai to give me an interview, not only about the craft but about his personal life also, about um, the history of the craft, about the philosophy of the craft, and the way, the simplicity that great man has. It makes the documentary much richer than I imagined. So that's how that documentary came into existence.
Okay, okay. Sir, how much time it took to like complete the film?
It took me 1.5 months to understand the craft myself, because if you have seen the documentary, it's a very complex art, and in such documentaries you should not, um, you cannot afford to give misinformation at any way. And it's very important as a filmmaker myself to understand the craft myself. Then only I can make a document. And it took me 4 to 5 days. It was a two-man team, me and my friend Ajay. I did camera, he did sound. That's all. It was 4 to 5 days shoot, and it took me 4 to 5 months to edit, just because it's a very complex subject. It's a very informative subject. While watching the documentary, you don't realize that how complex it is, but to craft that so much information in a way that audience doesn't get overwhelmed, because the aim is not to constantly bombard the information. Because if you want to just give an information, write an article. There is no need to make a film. So film's job is to engage the audience, give them the sensory experiences, because audience should be able to smell, hear sound. Just by looking at the film, audience should be able to touch, get the idea of the texture and everything. So that way it's important to take care of all those things. So it took me roughly 3 to 4 months to edit that document.
So added matlab, to make the structure and to that way.
Everything in post, it took me 3 to 4 months.
Okay. And sir, there was a use of painting and animation as well. Was it in your script or during post production?
Actually, that decision was taken during post production, because I felt that we need some visuals. So we went to Kutch Museum, and they have some statues in which there are Jat community statues, Charan community statues, where we can see their attire and everything. We took those images as a reference, and my wife actually painted those community illustrations. And there is another illustration where there is the Kshatriya story, that we used to be Kshatriyas, and there is a illustration about that. So that was by another Indian friend of mine who is an animator, and she helped me with that. But yes, it was an afterthought. It was not part of the script.
So are you doing any other projects right now?
I'm doing way too many projects right now, actually. Uh, so related to in the same vicinity as Ajrak, I last year was fantastic for me, because I spent 28 days in Himachal Pradesh, in a very remote village of Himachal Pradesh, where even a bicycle doesn't go, because it's on a hill. It's and it's absolutely cut off village from the rest of the world. Of course, network is there, telecellular network is there, and it was, and I made, along with my friend Lokesh, we made a documentary on Chola and Dora, which is a traditional attire of Gaddi community from Himachal Pradesh, Barmore region. And this year, that film was showcased in Manchester Metropolitan University, and they had a Go Global week where they wanted to showcase the cultures and crafts and arts from around the world. And this documentary was showcased there, and it's and currently we are sending this film to film festivals as well. And along with that, we made a small documentary on Dhoop, which is there on YouTube. I will share the link, which is about the handmade incense stick, जिसे हम धूप बत्ती बोलते हैं. So, so there was a man who used to go to jungle, pick up the plants, and make the dhoop batti entirely on himself and for his personal use, not for commercial use. So there is a small experimental uh, documentary on that. My Gujarati feature film as a cinematographer is coming in a few months. It's a out and out commercial Gujarati film. It's a comedy of error. It's a story of one night. It's a laughter riot. Then I'm making a few music videos for a band called Megdanush. So I'm very excited to showcase. I'm waiting for them to come out because I'm very happy with the way they have come out. I'm also working on a small short film which I am shooting next month. So a lot of things are going on. Then there is another Gujarati film which I produced along with my friends uh, last year. So that also should get released this year, which I shot and edited, but the first time I produced as well.
Great, great, sir. So, sir, you prefer like to work alone, or you like if somebody wants to assist you, like how they can approach you, sir?
In Instagram DM, I talk to them for 5 minutes, and then I gauge how passionate the person is. Then I have called people from Instagram directly on set sometimes. If somebody wants to join the set, I do invite them. It's okay. So if you want to reach out, DM me. Um, so there is a possibility that I will have a small conversation with you. I may even your passion. It's okay if you if somebody is wants to learn. It's so completely okay if that person doesn't know anything. But as it's utmost important to have that person some sincerity and learning attitude. So if I find that in you, I may not reply back, but otherwise I have called people from Instagram directly to my set, and sometimes I have been happy with the decision, sometimes I have not been happy with such decisions. But DM me in Instagram. That's the best way to reach to me.
Oh, great. So, what are your favorite films and filmmakers? If you could recommend some,
Sorry.
your favorite films and filmmakers list. You can give me a list.
Okay. One of the most favorite film ever is The White Balloon, the Iranian film. It's it that film comes on to my number 1 to 10. Then I usually watch films by director that I get after one director. I finish all their films. Then I choose another director. I finish all his films. Of course, I love Guy Ritchie. I love Coen Brothers. Recently, I'm loving this Chinese director Jia Zhangke. He's fantastic. I'm rediscovering David O. Russell. which is a Hollywood big name, but I never took him seriously earlier. Now I believe he's fantastic. I I love Iranian films. Give me any Iranian films, I'm sucker for that. Of course, Edgar Wright. Of course, Paul Thomas Anderson. Of course, Mani Ratnam. I feel and one of the in from India, I feel one of the criminally underrated director is Rajat Kapoor. I feel the Mithya and Aankho Dekhi is the only film from him which got some success even, but the Mithya and Raghu Romeo and um, I don't know. Usrat Ki Subah was it him? But the recent one I forgot the name, the retro film. But Rajat Kapoor, I feel is criminally underrated. He hasn't got the reputation even in the art circle as much as he deserves. And of course, I love Amit Datta. I would love if Amit Datta, are you watching this podcast? Please hire me. I would love to work with Amit Datta someday. He's and the most interesting thing about Amit Datta is you can't decode his films. His films are fantastic, but you can't figure out why. Because when you are watching a Guy Ritchie film, you can see how cool the editing is and everything. You can observe why these films are cool. It's very difficult to execute the way Guy Ritchie execute, but of course, but at least you can figure out. With Amit Datta, you can't figure out that why his films are mesmerizing. It's so I would love to work with him someday. And I enjoy watching films I know nothing about. I'm very thankful to Mubi, which is a movies OTT platform, where I can just go and see, okay, what is the film of the day, which I know nothing about. It's about the country I know nothing about. It's about the historic event I know nothing about. So I do not watch poster. I do not watch trailer of that film. I like to directly jump into the experience that filmmaker wanted to deliver. So it's my message to all other film enthusiasts that it's watch all kind of films. You don't have to make those kind of films. You don't have to just because you don't want to make those kind of films doesn't mean you don't have to watch them. It's okay. You don't even have to learn something from them. You enjoy the film. You allow the film to get to you, and knowingly and unknowingly a good film changes something inside your personality, and that subconsciously changes how as a filmmaker you operate. So it doesn't have to be a conscious decision. Okay, this is a very interesting transition, I will also execute that in my film. It doesn't have to be like that. Watch as what be very diverse in your watching experiences. That's I would suggest.
Okay, great, great. Listen. Sir, last question is if somebody wants to become a filmmaker, like what advice would you give to them?
I suggest make short films along with your friends. Make 1 minute films, 2 minute films, absolutely zero budget films from your phone. That's the advice I usually give to whoever asks me that I want to be a filmmaker. What should I do? Make 2 to 3 affordable short films. In that process, do not take that process lightly. So if you are making a small film on your phone, so do not treat that project, okay, it's just a video I'm making along with my friends. Give your heart, blood and soul into that film and the experience and it gives you, and once you um see the audience reaction of the films you have made, it teaches you so much. I always believe that filmmaking is like a magic trick. Mm, because when you see a magician perform, and if you know a trick, okay, that okay, he pull out the rabbit from his um, coat, but just because you know the trick doesn't mean you can perform the trick. So, and that's what happens with filmmaking. When we decode a film, when we watch a Wes Anderson film and see, okay, this is how you composite a frame. So, okay, you understood the trick, but that doesn't mean that you can execute the same trick yet without practice. I would not say you can't. Of course, you can, but that magician has given 4 years of his life performing the same trick every day so that he can perform the trick the same way in cinema. If you want to perform the tricks which you observe in others films, just merely understanding those tricks isn't enough. Perform those tricks at your own level, at your own budget. And second thing is, try to get on the set and on the project even at the lower level, as an AD, as a production assistant, get into the process. And that's it. I think then that's how you become a filmmaker, and wait for the right opportunity to grab on as when you become a filmmaker.
Great. Sir, thank you so much, sir, for joining. Such,
Welcome.
such a pleasure, sir, to will talk to you.